Casilee, I want you to keep in mind that it's going to feel like an interview because here at my house it's more of a conversation and less of an interview. That being said, can you tell me what you would consider to be your greatest strength?
Ooh.
Just kidding.
Am I applying for a job?
So, well, first of all, thank you for doing this. We've been talking about this for how many years?
20.
20.
Yes.
Can you get the mic just...
Oh, no,
yeah.
okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Okay. Yeah.
No, it's been a hot minute. Thank you for having me.
So, obviously, my first question actually is, so the Bengals lost in their league championship.
Why?
Would you say overall you're disappointed with the season or no?
Well, considering how we started, it didn't look very strong in the beginning.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm okay with the way we turned up toward the end. But then, needless to say, very disappointed. My guys just weren't there for the Chiefs game. They just weren't there. We've done it. We have had no issues before. They just didn't show up that day.
You have to feel like they'll be back though.
Oh, they're going to be back.
Mm.
I have faith in my Bengals. They will be back. And I am not a bandwagon fan. I have been a Bengals fan through blood, sweat, tears, many tears. Not just like one, two, like many years. So prior to Dalton. So
Like Jeff Blake days.
Yeah, this is a good era. I'm loving my team. And I have faith they'll be back.
So what is the genesis of your Bengals fandom?
Well, it's proximity.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, easy to get to games.
Okay.
I was a big Dalton fan, so that started the fandom even more. But
What year did they pick him? Was that like 06, 07 they picked him up?
Mm-hmm. Maybe.
Or before?
I think a little bit before. Yeah.
Okay. So Casilee, your Instagram handle, Sass in the Bluegrass.
No, it's not.
It's not?
No. It's Sassy Survivor.
Oh, crap. I keep getting you mixed up with that other account.
Oh, thanks. That hurts.
Yeah, we're going to have to scrap this, Sneed. This is bad.
Wow. Convenient.
Do you have any sarcastic remarks just to get things started?
Oh, they just come natural. So you don't plan for it. They just, that's the best sass is when it just is natural.
The best what?
Sass.
Oh, okay. All right.
Comes natural.
So, again, people might think because you work with a lot of my clients that the conversation we might want to have is about mortgages.
Right.
It's not.
Yay.
We can sort of talk about that, but it's more, I want people to have the opportunity to sort of get to know you as a person, because I actually think that your personal qualities far exceed your professional qualities, and my clients love you.
Oh, thank you.
So I think the first time I heard the name Casilee was actually from Dana Rex at my grandmother's funeral. But it's been awesome to have the opportunity to get to know you since getting sort of into the real estate business. How long have you been doing mortgages?
So I started, so funny story. I went to EKU and I graduated with a therapeutic recreation degree. Absolutely no jobs here in Lexington.
Is that like physical therapy?
It is through means of activities, spiritual, mental, physical.
Oh.
It was my jam.
Okay.
I was so pumped up. And the goal was to do that at Shriners or UK Children's Hospital. Just impossible to get a job. Once, especially in that area, this was, the late 1990s, it just wasn't a very open market at that time. So I fell into banking, like, hey, I needed a job. My degree wasn't taking off. So I began as a mortgage processor in 2003. So I have a lot of admin background, but it was a good stepping stone because I know what to look for, how things should flow. So it was a great background. So started in processing in 2003 and then did full-time origination starting in 2017.
So this would be your 6th year full-time origination?
Yes.
Okay. It does seem like you get in the weeds on some of the processing stuff more than most of my loan officers do. I knew you had a banking background, and I knew you'd worked in the branch. I didn't actually even know that you had done the processing thing.
That's exactly why.
That makes total sense.
Yes.
Okay. So, and you just stepped into a new role. Mm-hmm. Tell me about that.
So I have began working at People's Exchange Bank, which I'm very excited. It's a local community bank, which really just plays to my heartstrings. I love working. I mean, I'm proud of my state of Kentucky. Not that my last employer wasn't, it was just more corporate. They were based out of Michigan, and I just didn't feel like I could pass along the products and service the way I wanted to. So I feel like it's a win-win position. I get to team up with a local bank and, make local decisions, which is great.
Awesome. So I think we've talked about this before, but the small town that I grew up in, the bank in our town was People's Security Bank, which was my uncle's bank, where my brother worked, where my sister worked.
Where you did the handshake, got a loan.
Pretty much.
Yeah. Gosh, I miss those days.
The first time when we bought our first house, and I was just talking about the process of buying this house on the last episode with Ty, but our realtor said, okay, we can go look at houses once you have a letter telling me from a bank that you're pre-approved. And I said, okay, let me see what I can do to get you a letter. And I called my uncle at the local bank, and I said, he says he needs a pre-approval letter. And he said, hand him the phone.
I love it. I love it.
I said, okay. He said, John, they're both John.
Okay.
He said, John, Dad's pre-approved.
He can go buy whatever he wants. Give it to him. I love it. Gosh, the good old days, right?
Well, and it's not. I know that's my uncle, so it might sort of sound like nepotism, but that's really not what I'm driving at.
It truly was small town banking.
It's more like relationship driven, right?
For sure.
I think the world is better whenever we can see people as people and not as credit scores or employers.
Absolutely.
Right. And look at the whole picture.
Look at the whole picture. That's huge with me too.
I think that's missing in a lot of aspects of our society now, but we don't have to go down that rabbit hole.
It's a big rabbit hole. We might not climb back out, but
right.
I like to look at the whole picture too, and I really try really hard to work with people that may not look perfect on paper, but get them to look to where we can work with them, because I believe in that very philosophy. Gotta look at the whole picture.
Would you say that's what your focus is?
I mean, focus, that's a hard one. I mean, as simple and corny as it sounds, I just like helping people, and especially first-time home buyers, the uncommon maybe demographic, which of course they're our biggest demographic of home buyers, but I mean, that's my soft spot. I just like helping people. I mean, that's a big goal to obtain, and that's the reason I do what I do. It's fun.
Yeah, I know we worked together with some folks who maybe haven't been in a position to buy, and I think a lot of agents, a lot of lenders maybe wouldn't. They would have just kind of told people to sort of get it together,
right, and
then come back to me when you're ready. But you worked with some of those people for 6-8 months, continually working on their credit and getting them in a position to buy.
And I feel like I'm a credit counselor half the time, and that's okay. See, it's like it can be done. You just gotta maybe have a little willpower and patience, but it can be done. And that's what I like seeing, people accomplish those goals.
Well, I agree. And this is a conversation I've had on here before, is like the times where I've liked my job the most were when I was helping people that I care about, friends of mine, purchase that first-time home buyer house, or sell that house when maybe life was difficult and they really had to in that moment. So it's like I think most of us want to find meaning in what we do.
For sure.
Right?
I mean, otherwise,
yeah, right.
Well, obviously, we have to make an income, right?
Right.
But, I mean, it's not the most fun job in the world, so there's got to be that passion.
Right.
Because talking numbers and budgets and credit scores is just, kind of mundane. But, helping get past all the lingo and getting a home, that's what fuels the fire, for sure.
Right. It's the people part.
It is.
So getting back to this degree, does that program even still exist at EKU?
I don't know.
I've never even heard of that.
I don't know. So technically, it's a degree in Park and Recreation Administration with an emphasis in therapeutic recreation. Right? Sounded fun.
But the therapeutic recreation piece was really what you were after.
Yes, I wanted to work with kids. So I graduated, couldn't work with kids, tried to work with the geriatric population. Not for me.
Sad.
Very.
Yeah.
And they're mean. I'm sorry. Straight mean.
They don't have to care what you think anymore.
No, they don't. And it's I learned in my short stint in the nursing home, it's 50-50. They're either very sweet or they're mean and they don't care. Out for blood. I mean, I was hit multiple times, cussed at multiple times. It was wild. I'm like, I gotta go. Thanks. It was a good experience, but not my jam.
Do you feel like you get any perspective from dealing with those people? Something that I think about is like something that's driven me my whole life is when I'm an old man on my deathbed and I look back, it's like, what kind of attitude do I want to have? Do I want to be that bitter person who feels like their life, they haven't gotten the most out of their life? Or do I want to be somebody, who has gratitude for feeling like I've made the right things, the priorities, and made time for the right things?
It's all mindset, right? It's not a choice. It's a mindset. Like, regardless of how you live your life, my theory.
I think on a day-to-day basis, certainly gratitude is a choice. But I also do think that people may or may not have regret independent of their subjective perception.
But it is a choice in how you live your last days of life.
Correct.
And how you interact with people too.
Correct.
Don't choose to be the bitter old man.
No.
Be nice.
No. Right.
Yeah.
So, which actually brings me to a big question.
Big one.
You are a cancer survivor.
I am.
And you received that diagnosis when?
So, funny story. So, you remember the first day, I say we truly met because we didn't get to meet at your mom's service. When I was there.
I'm sure we met, but that was a blur for me. But yeah.
We didn't get a chance, maybe a quick introduction. But the first time you and I actually sat down with Dana and Rachel, we went to Winchell's. And that very Saturday, I was told the Friday, the day before, that I had cancer. And then we went to Winchell's the next day.
Holy cow.
Yeah, that was a day. That was a weekend. That was a rough one. But it was still great to meet you guys, hang out. Wow. So I was diagnosed in February 2000.
Casilee, I would have probably canceled that breakfast.
No. See, that's me. Got to keep on going.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was important for me when I got diagnosed that nobody treated me different. That for me, now everybody's journey's different, right? But for me, it was important that life continued as normal and no one was to make any type of big deal. Life was to go on. Otherwise, I don't know if I could have handled it as well, if that makes sense. So I was diagnosed February 2018. So I had a triple negative, which is not a hormone receptor cancer. It is more aggressive and more rare. Although
so triple negative in what stage?
It was 1A, B. It was early, thank goodness.
Okay.
So importance of getting your mammogram. That is what caught it, was a mammogram. So I thought it was just an abnormal reading. Had them before. This one, they said, hey, come, whenever there's an abnormal, they make you go to the hospital. So went to the hospital. They did 2 or 3 different rounds. And at that point, I'm like, okay, something's off. So they did more invasive procedures. And I mean, they prepared me that day, which I had no clue. They're like, this is cancer. Didn't know what kind of cancer I was dealing with at that point. But so ended up being the invasive ductal carcinoma stage 1B triple negative. So I was very proactive in my treatment. I elected.
So triple negative, meaning it doesn't have the hormone targets that other types of breast cancers have. So like,
correct.
one treatment that they might give someone who isn't that is like an aromatase inhibitor or something to reduce the amount of estrogen in your body, which the cancer feeds off of.
You got it.
It's harder to treat. Basically.
It's harder to treat, and it's more aggressive.
Right.
So, I, didn't want to go down this path again. So they did, because of the age I was when I was diagnosed, they did do a BRCA test. I ended up being a BRCA2 carrier, which was a shock. No, family history of cancer, especially breast cancer on for any of the women in my family. So that was a little bit of a shock. So because of that trait, I decided just, bilateral double mastectomy, I wanted to be as proactive and make that call, which ironically I had to fight the doctors about. They didn't want me to do that.
Really?
Yeah. So I learned a whole lot through this process that, oh man, medical care is huge, but for me, it's not like one size fits all, right? So I questioned a lot of things. Well, this is the normal path we do, and I'm like, well, that's fine, but I mean, maybe the normal path isn't my path. So when I told them I wanted to, especially having the BRCA gene, and I wanted to elect for the double mastectomy, I didn't understand why I was getting pushed back for that.
That surprises me too. I know there are people who just have the gene that have had the double mastectomy without even having been diagnosed with cancer.
Exactly.
Which I sort of thought was crazy. But if you already know you have cancer and you have the gene.
Right.
And it sort of surprises me because it seems like surgeons tend to want to do surgery.
Right. Well, so I know the only thing, and this
is coming from the oncologist though.
No, this was from, I hadn't even started. So things change all the time, especially with cancer as far as your routines and treatments. So when I was going through mine, now it's very common to have your chemo oncology prior to surgery. Mine was opposite. So I did my surgery first. Then I went for my oncology appointments. Okay, so when I was talking about the surgery piece, fighting for now they wanted me to have a lumpectomy, which is just remove, the one portion. But, in all of my decisions, I followed my gut and I prayed a lot. And my gut, everything was like, get the mastectomy. So I fought. I was like, explain to me why. What am I missing here? Why wouldn't I do this? I don't want to come back and do this again. And, well, something about your age and, you're just so young. And I'm like, well, I want to stay around. I really don't care, So anyway, as they do the surgery, I was already growing abnormal cells on the other side. So the gut was right. And, had I not been proactive and made that decision, I would have been back at the hospital having another surgery.
Wow.
Possibly facing another, diagnosis. So that's what's scary. It's, it's real important to really get a handle on, I did some research that there's a fine line of researching and then of course doing too much research when you're going through it, because it can scare you. I don't recommend it for everybody, but I knew if I was going to do it, I wanted to be informed and I wanted to make my own decisions and not just do what people were telling me to do because it's, this is what we do for everybody.
Well, I think unfortunately, the healthcare system has become one where there's a few companies that own tons and tons of practice groups. They do a high volume of patient load, and there are guidelines, from on high from someone in another city far away. And I do think we all sort of have to be our own advocate and sort of stand in the doctor's office and say, I'm a human being. I'm not the page in your guidelines that you look up. Like if you have disease A, then you apply treatment B, right?
Talk to me. Tell me why.
Talk to me, not my chart.
Right. Let's have a conversation. And those were the things that I pushed for.
Yeah.
When they saw me walking in, I get the look like, oh God, here she comes again. That's right. Here I come. That made them all smile, So, so I was.
This is the UK?
Yes, which I will say there's amazing care at UK. I did have to make a few changes. I did change my oncologist, which I am so thankful I did. That's the thing. It's you just really have to find the path and the people you feel is right, because that's important, right? Like, your life is in their hands, and you need to be able to respect and trust what they're telling you, and not feel like you're there to make money for the hospital.
So you did the double mastectomy first.
Mm-hmm.
When did that happen?
That was May of 2018.
And then you did chemotherapy afterward.
Yeah, I started in July of 2018.
So just kind of give your body the chance to recover
a little bit, yes.
A little bit from the surgery.
Mm-hmm.
What chemo did you do?
I did 4 rounds of dose-dense AC.
I don't know. AC.
Ugh, freaking chemo brain. It's real.
Okay.
It's a nickname. It's the Red Devil and a C. Oh, gosh.
Okay.
Might have to research that. I can't remember what it's. Yeah, it's just AC. Always.
Did you get sick from that?
You know, I was very lucky, and this is where I think my treatment team took very good care of me. They had me on such a protocol of pills. I mean, down to nausea pills, even some Tagamet, something very simple, like for indigestion, but it served another purpose. Like, they had it down, and I was lucky. I mean, it's not so much the sickness. It just kicks your butt, like, exhausted. And then, of course, as you get like your first round, I only felt down for a couple days, and I'm like, okay, this ain't bad. So then the second round is definitely, it hits home a little bit more, because that's when the hair loss starts coming into play. And, you know, I could tell it took a little bit longer to recover. And then by that third round, it's a butt kicker. So just about the time it takes you start feeling better, it's time to go get another infusion. But the biggest thing, and this is what I researched too, is exercise is key, which sucks, right? Because you're tired and it's the last thing you want to do. But walking was, and I got lucky too, because, you know, I was doing this in the summer, so the weather was nice. I made myself walk, and I feel like, I mean, simple words, I just felt like it pushed the chemo out faster. So it was very therapeutic, both physically and mentally too.
Here's the thing that I'm still completely amazed by. You know, you're married to my cousin, and I've always felt like we had a good relationship. Obviously, we have a closer relationship now than we did 5 years ago. But the fact that you went through that whole process working with me the whole time, and I never knew. Like, that still blows my mind.
Well, you know, that weekend that I got diagnosed, that we, you know, went to Winchell's and stuff, I spent that weekend crying all weekend. Dana too.
I'm sure.
I mean, it was just such a, well, and keep in mind too, Dana and I had only been married 6 months. So, you know, lots of life changes already, you know, with getting married and, you know, all these dreams we had and plans, and then whack, you know. It's like, it was a very humbling process. So that weekend, I allowed myself a pity party, right? I earned it. But after that, I was like, it's, you know, and at the time too, you know, I had a young son to think about. And I was like, I refuse to let him see fear in me, because that's going to create fear for him. And I just, you know, had a very peaceful, you know, it was a very spiritual process. Did a lot of praying. But I just had a feeling, I was like, it's going to be okay. Like, there's going to be some bumps in the road. It's going to be a pain, right? But it's going to be okay, and I'm not going to be a victim here. And I'm going to have a positive attitude, and my son's not going to know anything different. And that was my attitude. And I really think that helped me. And, you know, it's easy for me to say, and I know it really is. Everybody's path and journey and experience is so completely different. I volunteer for it's called Living Beyond Breast care diagnosis, but I'm a volunteer helper, hotline caller, and I talk to women all the time that just struggle, you know. So I know that my journey was very fortunate, very blessed, but I mean, a lot of it's mental too. I just didn't give myself a chance to get down. So it was business as normal. Thad Blevins.
And I gotta tell you, I'm a little bit of two minds about that. There's some part of me that is like amazing that you were able to go through that without bleeding on me or bleeding on our clients. And there's another part of me that's like, I wish she had felt like she could talk to me about this.
Oh, well, you know, and that's funny you said that because I didn't realize, man, you know, cancer, it's one of those things like, you know, I had so many people. I read a story. Sorry, I'm trying to get my thoughts on how to explain this, but it's almost like, thank God you're not divorced from Rachel, but it's almost like a divorce because in that process, you realize that the people that you think are going to be there for you aren't there for you. And then some people, likewise, that you think, well, they're not going to care, are your biggest cheerleaders. It was such a surreal process because I saw that and how many people were upset that I didn't like call on them and help them. And I know that comes from a place of love and care. But again, for me and my personal choice, it was like, now I'm stubborn too, right? And I'm like, nobody's helping me. I'm doing this on my own. Now, I say that. I didn't do it on my own. I had my mom, who was my rock, and I had Dana, who was my second rock. You know, I didn't do it by myself. I had their support, but I was just very stubborn about no one's going to take pity on me. That's a problem on me. That's me being stubborn. Because, you know, that's how people, you know, I didn't want anybody looking at me like I didn't want, okay, well, these people can't trust me right now, right? Like I might mess their loan up or they can't count on me, you know, because I've got this treatment or sickness going on. Like for me, it was critical. I didn't want that to even be a thought in anybody's mind.
Well, I think you have to be careful because it's like the most important thing in that process is you, right? It's like somebody else may want to sort of insert themselves into that process with you. And maybe they sort of, even though they don't know, they sort of selfishly like want to feel the importance of playing a role, right? And it's as much about them as it is about you.
Exactly.
And you have to be really careful.
That's true.
To sort of protect your energy and protect your focus. And I appreciate that.
That's a very good point.
For sure. And feel like you don't want to be in a position where you can't be there for your people. I get that too. So I have a lot of respect for it at the same time, for sure.
Well, thank you.
So would you say that diagnosis gave you a perspective shift on life otherwise?
Oh gosh, yes.
Tell me about that.
1,000,000%. Just, well, you know, you kind of live life going through, you know, the normalcy, right? And just forget all the little things. And that's what it did. And I still, you know, 5 years out, which I'm so grateful, I never want to get back to that place again where I look out at the sunset and I'm like, God, that's beautiful. Like I never did that before, you know? And just taking time to look at my surroundings and saying, thank you. Thank you for the blue sky. I mean, it sounds so cheesy, right?
No.
But it's so true. Like it's especially when I'm outside in nature, that's where it just really clicks and it's like spiritual. It's like I don't ever want to take another sunset, blue sky, day at the beach, anything for granted. You know, I make myself every day be thankful. And some days it's challenging. Don't get me wrong, you know, hard days. But it's like I don't ever want to go a day and not say thank you or give gratitude to something. And that was something I wasn't doing before.
And you think you've been able to carry that with you?
I do. And I've made it a motto to always be that way. You know, I'm not going to lie. There's probably a day I haven't done it, you know. And there's days it's hard, real hard, you know, having a bad day and, you know. But that's something I told myself, like, you're going to overcome it. Because I told myself when I was going through the treatment, you know, life's going to be different. And I don't ever want to take for granted just the little things. It's the little things that you don't think about that all of a sudden become very special. So I told myself, never again. Don't take that for granted.
I think we tend to frame things in terms of our goals and in terms of pivot points and where do we want to end up and what steps do we have to take to get there. And I think I'm all for all that. I mean, I read those self-improvement books. I'm a part of the book club at the office. I talk about, you know, investments. I work with clients on home purchases all the time. But I think it is really the little things that make up our lives, and the little things are how we spend the majority of our time.
So true. And it's not until, golly, you know, a big epiphany or unfortunately life event happens that you finally sit and you're like, oh, wow. You know, it's the little things that add up that I think bring the most amount of love and joy to our lives.
And also our relationships with the people that we care about.
For sure.
Like, we tend to take people for granted, I think.
So true. We do. And that's the other thing, you know, my family, we're close-knit. We're a small family. You know, I got my parents, I have a brother, and of course my husband and my kids. And it's like I felt like my relationship with all of them, which was strong already, but it just went up another notch, you know?
So what was the rest of the timeline? So you had that surgery in May, started chemo in July, and you say you did 4 rounds of chemo?
I did 4. Now they wanted me, this is going to be unorthodox, they wanted me to do 12 more rounds of additional chemotherapy because, you know, standard treatment.
They wanted you to do 12 rounds after you'd had a double mastectomy that they didn't recommend?
Right. So again, this was the one I really, really, really struggled with because along with my mastectomy, I knew I had to do the 4 rounds of AC. That was just a given, right? But when I was asking questions about the 12 additional rounds, and again, I'm going blank on all of the chemo drugs, the names, but they said, well, you know, it's just protocol. I'm like, okay, well, can you give me something more concrete? Like, what kind of odds? Like, what are the odds? Yeah, they don't do that. And it almost like, now at this time, this is when I'm having conversations with my oncologist, okay? And I just wasn't getting the feedback that made me feel that it was risking my body through 12 more rounds of neuropathy, which that scared me. Lots of different life-altering things that could have happened. And I thought, okay, at some point, I was proactive on the surgery. I did the 4 rounds of incredibly hard chemo. So the 12 additional rounds were just in case rounds. Now, obviously not for everybody, but for me, because I did the surgery, because my lymph nodes all came back clear, because I was early stages and because of my margin lines, that's why I personally opted not to do the 12 additional rounds of chemo. Would that happen for everybody? No. There's a lot of factors that went into this. And I also had to tell myself, if it comes back, then that's on me.
You have to be at peace with the decision that you made.
Absolutely. And it was the most stressful decision I ever made in my life. But when I sat there and did pros and cons, and I just followed my gut. My gut's like, no, you're okay. I'm like, okay.
So at what point do they consider you in remission after your 4 rounds of chemo?
So after the 4 rounds of chemo, I was going back every 6 months. And I believe it was at that next 6 month that they said, okay, everything looks all clear. You're cancer free.
And so that would have been 2019?
Yes.
So
that was January
2019?
Mm-hmm.
So you get a year of normal? A year of a new normal? In 2019, you're adapting to life post-cancer, post-mastectomy, your new post-cancer marriage.
New normal. Yeah.
Right?
Ooh, yeah.
Tell me about that.
Struggle. Lots of differences, you know. Cancer's ugly. It's takes a toll on your family, your caregivers. I mean, Dana was an incredible strength, but it also, it did a number on them, you know. Most relationships, you know, with your spouse, you want to help that person. And when you can't help and you feel helpless, it's brutal. So, but, you know, a year in is an awful early time to adjust to a whole lot of changes. I mean, between 2018 to 2019, I had 5 surgeries, counting my reconstruction too. Yeah.
Why the 5 surgeries?
Because let's see, there's a process of, obviously I'm counting my mastectomy, and then you have to have a port surgically implanted, and then expander surgery. Golly, there's one more. I know I had 4 for sure. And then I had 2 hospital stints because I got an infection and I had to be hospitalized longer for that than I did anything else. It was a terrible infection. Not sure what happened there. But you know, just financially, it was hard. So, you know, your body's never going to be the same. So it's a lot of different challenges. It is definitely a new normal, but it's one now that I look back on and I'm like, hey, piece of cake. I'm here. Life is good now, but that first year it's rough.
I think you probably had the most amazing wig ever in the history of wigs.
I love my wigs.
I never could tell that you had one.
Exactly.
I was like, she had to have lost her hair, but you can't tell.
No, my doctor didn't even know. Right? What? Yeah. I mean, the nurses didn't even know. They're like, how have you not lost your hair? I'm like, oh, I have. This is a wig. They're like, what? Like, yes. So that's my passion. Like, if I could open up a store here in Lexington, I think that I would do it hands down. But, you know, maybe someday. But I had to go to Louisville to find a good store. No offense, but I couldn't find anything here locally that was for me, you know, because that was the goal. I didn't want it to look wiggy. So found this amazing lady in Middletown area who has her own shop. She's an ovarian survivor, so she went through the whole process, which is why she opened up her wig store. She struggled finding something too. So Heidi Fuller, and she's got what's the name of her place? Oh my gosh, why all these questions, and I lose my mind. But I can get the name. But she's got she saved my life. No joke. Yeah. She was just, I pre-planned because I knew, you know, golly, I've always had long hair. So I knew that part was going to be really hard on me to lose my hair because, you know, with a lot of women, you know, you identify with your hair and it's a big piece. And so I was proactive on that and went and saw her before I even started chemo because I wanted it there when I needed it.
Well, I think for you in particular, from what you're telling me, it was like the most essential thing through this whole process, other than getting rid of the cancer, was preserving your identity.
Yes.
You didn't want to be a sick person.
Right. And that's why for me, I couldn't opt, like I look at women, they're so cute and they wear like the little, beanies.
Yeah.
I was like, I would love to do that, but then people are going to know I'm sick.
Yeah.
Can't do that.
Well, was there some part of you that didn't want to see yourself as a sick person?
Oh, for sure. But as I came home after a day at work, first thing I did, ripped that wig off. Like, phew, I'm done with you. Yeah. It felt good to take it off. But so, I mean, at home, and obviously my family, they saw me with the little beanie on. Mm-hmm. But I think, other than my kid and maybe my mom, my parents, no one saw me bald other than Dana. Now, there's pictures of me.
I've seen the pictures.
Yeah, if you Google.
I eventually figured out the wig thing only from your hairstyle being so similar from like different times that I had seen you. Mm-hmm. But at any point, if I had seen you one time in context, I would have had no clue. And I mean, I pay attention, Yeah. But I think that's amazing, and I think the headspace that you're in as you go through that, and how you feel about yourself and how other people see you, and your psychology, it has so much impact on your body's ability to recover.
I do too.
I really do.
I agree.
Even when my mom was going through cancer at UK, the oncologists were, they were telling us, and at Cleveland Clinic, they were telling us, quickly your mentality and your approach to it, your attitude is so important to your outcome.
So it's repetitive. You see that a lot. So I'm a firm believer in your attitude is a lot of it.
Yeah. It's hard to know how to follow that. It's hard to know how to follow that.
It goes down from here.
Yeah. What? Yeah.
Airline food. I'll have to explain.
So I think one thing I've sort of learned about you is you're a person who fundamentally follows your intuition about things.
Oh, yes.
So
your face. I feel like I know where this is going, but I don't know. Let's see.
No. So,
okay.
I'm trying to figure out.
Deep thoughts with that.
No. Just like, tell me. There's a lot of depth to that. Tell me what that means for you. To be an intuitive person.
Well, I mean,
I think it's sort of cheesy. Like you see these like there's the jokes about the dating profiles, and it's like, I'm intuitive. I'm an empath. Like people make fun of people for that, right?
Well, all right. Well,
but this is really,
let's make it interesting.
Like what I'm hearing is this is a part of your identity.
It
was a part of your decision making and your cancer treatment in so much of the course of your life. Not in the sense of I'm a 20-year-old who's telling prospective boyfriends that I'm an empath. There's evidence for this in your case.
Right, there is. So okay, so we're not going down. We're going to keep up the interesting conversation. You ready?
Okay.
Okay. So my mom is very intuitive. Okay, and when I say that, I was raised with always trust your gut. My mom was like, you always trust your gut. I feel this, I feel that. Like I was grown up that way, right? So through life, lots of different experiences have happened. Now, I'm not going to go down the whole rabbit hole of do you believe in ghosts and spirits, but let's just say I've had a fair share.
Why not?
Experiences.
Do you believe in ghosts?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yeah.
Tell me about your experiences.
Okay, so that's what I was like. It's going to get fun up in here. So, oh wow, I hope nobody judges me. This is not something I put out, and this is exactly why. Because I'm like, people are going to think I am crazy, but I'm just being me, being honest. But so, my mom would tell me stories of different ghosts and adventures. and I can't remember how old I was, but when I was in middle school is when I started having experiences, okay? So my mom was newly married, and we were living in Lexington with my new stepdad, and there were just several incidences. Now, when I say I believe in ghosts, I personally have never seen a ghost, okay? I feel spirits, and I feel presence, and I've had flashes of light and like wind go by.
Mm-hmm.
I've experienced all of those. I've also experienced like when my grandmother passed, who I was extremely close with. I was struggling after she passed. There was one night my cat at the time, it's a cat, right? They don't want to be touched. She would hide all the time, right? One of those cats. She came and she slept with me all night, and she smelled just like my grandmother.
What?
And I was like, oh my God, that's my grandmother coming back to tell me it's okay. I know. Don't judge me.
I'm not judging you.
But so like I feel like I've always had this intuition. Now, I can go into certain places and I can feel energy, like bad energy. I can pick up on good energy, but like for me, it's really hard to go to a funeral home, especially if it was a untimely death or an accident. I literally feel like things are bouncing off of me. My energies are very chaotic. So, I've always had some sense of intuition and feelings. I don't explore it because I could probably be like a sixth sense person, but I don't want to go down. I don't want to see dead people. No. But I probably could. So I've just always had this upbringing of, hey, spirits are normal and follow that's your guides telling you, what to do. And I've had a few. So this is funny. So going back to the cancer diagnosis, there is a lady also in Middletown who is a psychic that I talk to from time to time. Now, I take that with a grain of salt. I think it's entertaining. I don't live off of every word, but I have had 3 readings with her, and this woman is insanely accurate. Okay. So, in fact, I went and saw her before Dana and I got married, and she went through a list of things that will happen on my wedding day, right? And she told me, for example, she's like, for me, birds are my past family members that come by and check on me. And she said, before the day is over, there's going to be a blue bird, and that's a sign that your family and your angels are with you on your heaven or on your wedding day. Okay. So my wedding day comes and goes. I purposely didn't tell Dana this. And I know you're laughing because you know your cousin Dana Rex. And if I told Dana, he'd be like, oh, whatever, Casilee. It's a bunch of garbage. I can't believe you pay for that. My God, that's where my money's going. That's so stupid. So I purposely didn't tell him, but I told him that I went and talked to her and that there was a certain sign I was looking for. So I kept it to myself, and we're at dinner. The night's about over, and there came this. We went to Savannah for our honeymoon. Okay, so I can't remember the restaurant, but there was this incredible lady that came around the restaurant singing, and she came by our table and started singing a song about bluebirds. Shut your face.
What?
Yes. And I just started.
How far apart was this?
From my reading to the, let's see. So I saw her in August, and I got married September 29th.
Okay.
And I took notes because otherwise I wouldn't have remembered. But I took notes of what cues she told me to look for. And it was funny because I saw the other cues earlier in the day, but the one cue I was still waiting for was the bluebirds to let me know my family approved and was there on my wedding day, right? And I'm thinking the night's over. Oh, well, she still did great. It's cool. But then here comes this lady singing about bluebirds. I just got chills and I started tearing up. And Dana's like, what's going on? I'm like, you're not going to believe me if I tell you. Oh, my gosh. So I told him, and he's just sitting there like, bless his heart. He doesn't know what to think. But so very cool. So I will say, I called my psychic when I got diagnosed. Okay. My mom actually encouraged me to do that.
Mm-hmm.
Now, she told me, and maybe I found some comfort in it, but she told me that everything was going to be okay. So maybe that was what helped me, I don't know, a placebo effect maybe to some degree, but she said I was going to be okay. She gave me a lot of cues. I've got notes on it somewhere, but no, this is where it's getting there to get a little crazy.
Crazy is what we're here for.
Okay, good, because I don't think I've even told you about this yet. So this is funny how this is coming up. So people are gonna be like, "Oh my God, she's so crazy." So she tells me, okay, being intuitive.
Mm-hmm.
Some spirits like intuitive people.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, they're attracted to them. And there's a thing about vibration. So, like, my vibration's really high because I'm intuitive. Okay. So, when we were in Savannah for our honeymoon, which looking back at it now, probably was not the best place to go. I didn't realize Savannah was so haunted. I don't do haunted because of my sixth sense thing, right? So, while we were there for our honeymoon, she told me that I picked up a little girl that clung to my spirit. And I was like, okay. She goes, so you need to tell her, she was very specific. She's like, so you need to do a cleansing and you need to tell her to move on to the light. And almost insinuating that this had something to do with the cancer too. Like it was a part of it. And I was like, okay. So the reason that stuck with me, though, is because when Dana and I, there was one night we went to dinner and we got like one of those rickshaws to drive us back to the hotel. And this guy picked us up and he was so cool. He's like, well, hey, if you guys don't have plans, I'll drive you around and I'll give you a little history. We're like, oh, yeah, that's cool. So we go by this one house and Dana and I had been walking and we walked past this house and I got chills. And so I knew there was something off with this one specific house, okay? So when we're in the rickshaw, the guy tells us we're coming up to that house. And in fact, you can ask Dana Rex. We're getting close to it and I start elbowing him. Like, here comes the house I don't like. And I'm elbowing him. And he proceeds to tell us the story about that house. Little girls had been raped, murdered, beaten there. And I just, I knew it, right? Because I was like, I knew there was bad energy there. I'm hitting Dana. I told you.
Was this as part of the slave trade in Savannah?
It might have been, yes. And I wish I could have. I really wanted to just put that whole experience past me, so I didn't write down the name of the house. But I bet I could go back and find it. So I just felt the bad energy from even outside. Like it was intense. So my psychic told me I picked that little girl up at that house because she felt my, like I knew something bad there and like she saw me as a mother figure. Mm-hmm. So she attached to me. So I brought her home with me. So my mama, being, the intuitive person, came over with her sage and we had a cleansing and it was the freakiest, most spiritual, there are no words for the process. So, she gave me a very specific plan. She told me to put on a certain type of music, to have a prayer conversation with her, to be saged, to cleanse that off, and then to go around to all parts of the house and sage, and then afterwards lift the windows for X amount of time. So you can imagine my husband's expression when I'm like, need you to leave the house for a couple of hours. I'm going to get rid of some spiritual demons in here. That goes over real well. So luckily it was a nice day and Dana went golfing and pretended like that conversation never happened. So then, I put the music on and I just felt led to like sit down. Now my mom wasn't here yet. And I just felt led to sit down and like talk to this little girl and tell her I was so sorry for what had happened and that whatever I could do to help her, but that she had to detach from me because I was sick and I had a battle that I had to fight and I needed all my strength for that. And so, I kind of had this crazy conversation with her and it felt so strong, right? Like it just felt like this isn't made up. This is real. It felt so powerful. Then my mom comes over and she starts saging me. And sage, of course, for those that don't know, it's like wood, right? And you burn it and it just burns and it does a smoke. So my mom started saging me. And then we start going, because the psychic said, make sure you do, especially your room and your son's room, which I thought was weird. She said my son's room. So we go to Logan's room, and there's parts where my mom's like, do you see that? Do you see that? There would be black smoke coming from the sage, which that's apparently, I don't study this stuff, but that's apparently where they're fighting you and they don't want to go. So my mom really had to work really hard in Logan's room. And then ironically, in my closet, she had to work really hard. So I chalked that up to she was a girly girl. Because, I'm a girly girl and I love my clothes. And there was a necklace Dana bought me while we were on our honeymoon. And it had so much energy on it. It is, right? This is crazy. But anyway, so we cleansed all of that. And the sage stick kept going out like she was fighting us. But then my mom and I both just talked to her. It took a while. And it was like finally you just felt peace. And it was all good.
I think if I was going through that, there would have been some part of me that felt like I'm doing this because it might be helpful, but I'm also doing this. I kind of feel insane doing this.
Yeah.
Like I would have felt silly. Like,
oh, I did.
Yeah,
I did. I did until I started like talking to her. And that's when I was like, okay, I don't know if this is actually insane. Because I felt like I was literally having a conversation with somebody. Like it felt real. Like I felt her pain. Right? So ever since then, I'm like, okay, I don't trigger anything. I don't go anywhere scary. I don't watch scary movies. I stay away. I'm shut down. I don't want no part of it.
Wouldn't you say that it's a gift, though?
Yeah.
If that's real, wouldn't you say that it's a gift?
I think it's a blessing and a curse all at once. I don't know. I say a curse. Maybe it's not a curse, but I'm not. Maybe later in life, maybe I'll entertain it, but now I got too much other stuff to do. I can't take care of the spirit world right now.
But if you're that sensitive in those ways, do you feel that like that has a big impact on how you deal with other people in your relationships?
Yes.
And what you pick up from people?
Absolutely.
Tell me about that.
Well, I mean, I feel like I'm always a good people person, like a judge of character. But I feel like there's certain people I work with. That's why I bust my butt for them. I feel the pain sometimes. Isn't that crazy? Like, I feel hurt and pain and the struggle that they're going through, which just adds more fuel to my fire to make sure we get a house for them to get it done. There's certain people I have to struggle to work with because I feel like they're just not good people. But yet, I mean, obviously I'm going to be a professional and do my business, but I try to put that aside, right? Because then I would just be crazy. I mean, I try to use it to my advantage when I can and then block it out when it's not an advantage. Yeah.
See, I'm not surprised about the bluebird thing with Dana. Dana's a pretty good guy.
Yeah.
I would expect that to be pretty affirming. Old Dana Rex.
He's very, that ain't real. Putting it out of my mind. We'll be sitting there. Have your dogs, like, ever one night, you're just sitting around, all of a sudden both of your dogs look?
Yeah.
Right? So when that happens, I'm like, Dana, what do you think it is? He's like, it's nothing, Casilee. they don't bother me like they bother you. It's nothing. Like, he just doesn't want to believe it.
I just think they hear things that we can't hear or smell things that we can't smell, right? They're really sensitive.
Maybe not.
So going back to adjusting to a new normal in 2019, which is a hard thing for you to do with the changes in your body image, and that process of going through that was hard for Dana, and you're kind of seeing him reeling from that. And then COVID hits in 2020. Like, it's just like one thing after another,
right?
after another.
Right.
What was that like for you when COVID started?
Honestly, it was a blur because that's when rates were so low and you and I were working our tails off. Honestly, it could have been a blessing. I didn't have time to think about anything. It was, I mean, just like you, there were 12-hour days. I mean, it was Monday through Sunday. There was hardly a day I didn't not work, just trying to keep my head above water. But looking back, I mean, what a blessing, because it kept my mind off of things, and, you know, it was a whirlwind. I didn't have time to be depressed. It was like, yeah, everybody's stuck at home, but everybody's talking about how bored they were, and I'm like, what? I'm over here working, nonstop. I don't even know what that means. But so, looking back at it, I think it was a blessing. Obviously, I hated it, right? I mean, all the effects it has done to we're still reeling from it. But, at the time, it was great to keep me busy, so.
Casilee, I'm running out of questions.
I feel like we've covered some good areas.
No, for sure we have.
Am I crazy?
No. I think nobody wants to sit and listen to me talk about home inspections.
That's so boring.
Right.
Now, let's talk a little bit of business, though. I will say this. So, from a mortgage perspective, I'm really careful about following forecasts because no one knows, right? Like, we can all say what we think will happen, and even what I'm getting ready to say may or may not happen, but I do follow this one guy, and he gives very sound advice. He has for years, Barry Habib, and he has indicated specifically May 15th, and there is on MGIC's website, that's a mortgage insurance company that I work with, there is a presentation. You get time, I highly suggest you look at it. Or if anybody wants to get a little bit more insight about rates, it's super informative. It's about an hour, but it's very informative. But May 15th, he said that's the day that rates are going to stabilize again for us. He predicted the down we had. He predicted the up that we're currently in right now. So he's been spot on. So he said May 15th, things are finally going to stabilize out.
What does he base that on?
That's where I need to refer to it's very specific and complex as far as how he gets and explains why the rates are going to stabilize. So I don't want to do it injustice. I would just say listen to his presentation. But he said fives. We'll come back to fives, which, let's be real, we got spoiled, right? 5 is a very good rate. I mean, for those that were lucky and got their houses at lower rates, it's a blessing. But for the market that we're in and we're going to be in, 5 is incredible.
Oh, I can tell you, Casilee, right now, I've sort of been surprised just in the last couple months, even where we are. I can't be specific, but I've seen deals where properties I thought were overpriced, were in that sort of mid-range, still get 7 or 8 offers right now.
Awesome.
Well, awesome in the sense that there's activity, but not awesome in the sense that even with high rates, there's so little inventory. That this is how buyers are still feeling.
Okay. Yeah. When I say awesome, I'm just referring to the fact that people aren't scared to buy.
Right. Well, I think a lot of people needed to move, and then rates crossed like 7, that threshold, I think, caused a lot of people to hit the pause button.
Oh, for sure.
And now those people just can't hang on any longer. They have to move at
They're
this
forced.
point, and they've come down from where they were.
Right.
But I do think there's also a lot of people who have been sitting it out who, once rates drop a little more, may finally pull the trigger.
And that's going to be a problem because with the low inventory, and then all of a sudden everybody wants to come back out and buy a house again, right?
Maybe. There is a flip side to that, which is some of those people who are buyers are also sellers.
Well, that's true too.
So it's just going to be interesting to see how many of those people who refinanced during COVID who have sub 3% interest rates are going to be willing to list their house and move now.
Right.
With rates in the 5s. Certainly they're not going to list their house and move with rates in the 7s.
More doable in 5s, though.
Some of them
sure.
may want to with rates in the 5s.
Right. I mean, and that's why we use the word stabilize. It's not amazing, but yet a 5% rate is very stable. It's strong.
Yeah, I don't...
And it'll come back. You know, it always does.
I don't think a natural market would ever have set rates as low as they were during COVID.
Right. That's the only reason. That was not normal. I think a lot of people forget that. Well, it's going to be hard. I got this, 2.75. Well, in all honesty, let's see, I'm trying to think what year it was. 2005? I don't know. Golly, I've been in the business so long, it's hard. But, I mean, it's a cycle. Like, even not COVID related, there were days that we locked people in the 3s, the 2s. It's a cycle. So the question is how long is it going to take for COVID and inflation, all that to recover? But the rates are always going to come back down. So even if we don't have, another COVID related instant, there's going to be a time when the market drops. We just don't know when. It's going to come. Always comes back around.
Well, I think it's not a magic 8-ball, right? The Fed's just responding to inflation.
Right.
It's going to be driven by what the CPI numbers say.
Mm-hmm.
Right?
Yeah.
There's logic to it.
There is logic to it, and that's why Barry Habib's presentation plays into all of that and how that information dictates what he's seeing. So I would definitely look at that. It's very interesting. But yeah, but here's the thing. There's always, whenever you're talking about money and investing, real estate, you can't go wrong.
In the long run.
In the long run. What better return, And I feel like our market here, we're very lucky. I think it's strong. I think we're going to stay strong. I think we're a great sought out community. So I think we're going to be really lucky. And, even, of course, knock on wood, we're not in the 7s. My rate, we're below 7. So if we can stay there and get lower, it truly sounds horrible, but it's still a great time to buy, invest your money. And then when rates drop, there's going to be some equity there. We refinance you. And what I love telling people is if you're used to making that payment, let's keep you on that payment. Let's cut your term in half when the rates come back. There's so many options. So it's still a great time to buy. Good to invest in real estate.
So what would your advice be to the first-time home buyer now who saw rates that in the 2s during COVID and they've waited, they've been trying to save up, maybe they think they need to put 20% down.
No. We don't want to wait. That'll be 20 years by the time that happens. We could almost have your mortgage paid off now. Well, and that's still a misconception. You don't need 20% to buy a home. So with as low as 3%, you can buy your first home. And even if you owned a home 5 years ago, you still qualify as a first-time home buyer again. That's what's nice. So as little as 3% down. And what's nice about that, too, is there's mortgage insurance options that might add a little bit to the payment. But again, home ownership, the long-term investment, it's an easy return on your investment versus, waiting 5 more years. It's mind-blowing the amount of money it takes to put down on a home to lower your payment versus if you have some capital and some cash, let's use that to buy a lower interest rate. I mean, that's where you see the difference in your payment, and that's where it could be cost effective. You got to look outside the box sometimes.
What kind of MI premiums are you seeing right now?
Well, okay, so it's not a black and white question because a lot goes into an MI premium, just like your interest rate. It depends on what your total debt ratio is. Is it one borrower? Is it two borrower? Because if you have two borrowers, you get a lower MI premium because it's less risk. The better your credit score, the better your mortgage insurance. It's very credit.
So there's a range.
Driven. There's a range.
But there are brackets on the range.
Yes. And also the more money you put down, the less your mortgage insurance premium is too. So there's different caveats to it. But, on average, even if you don't have the best credit score, I mean, depending on your total situation, on the high end, it could add maybe, $175 to your payment. But then on the low end, it's like $55. Mm-hmm. Very affordable.
So, and I think we've actually had buyers who we've worked with that have seen scenarios like this before. There are times where you do try to put a little bit more down to get to that 20% scenario. It actually makes your mortgage cost more than it would versus that MI premium. And that sounds so counterintuitive and upside down to people.
Sense. Right.
Can I explain that?
Sure. So, and that's what's crazy because it's going to feel very wrong in every way, as it should, but you actually get an interest rate break when you do carry a mortgage insurance premium. And that's just like with any insurance policy. It's kind of a guarantee, right? So should you foreclose, the bank or the mortgage lender, has a little insurance policy if you carry some mortgage insurance there in case of default versus 20% down. God forbid something happens and you quit, making your payment. Guess what? There's no insurance. So that's the incentive of mortgage insurance and getting a better interest rate because there's that guarantee, that little insurance policy there, which is crazy. But that's the thing too. If you put down, 15%, your mortgage insurance premium is very, very affordable. Very affordable. Sometimes you can even prepay, like at closing, lump sum, and just pay off your mortgage insurance there just to get the better rate. There's so many different options you can do. That's why it's not always, I'm big in that fit the box thing, right? I like to be outside that box. Mm-hmm. These are all things you got to take into account because it makes a big difference. Mm-hmm. And I'm all about saving people money at the closing table and each month on their payments, especially now, right? Because times are tough, inflation, everything's high. Eggs are $5, man. We got to make those pennies count.
Yeah, there's some people that I've worked with, it's like it's better to own a house than to not own a house. But the percentage of their income that their mortgage payment is, I don't know how they do what they do.
No, it's hard. I'm seeing a lot of people pick up extra jobs just to get through. It's tough right now. Mm-hmm. We just have to have hope. It's all going to stabilize out. Good days are coming.
I'm interested in this Barry Habib, is that his name?
Yeah.
Because I know just over the past month, the CPI numbers haven't been where we want them to be.
Right. And he said that would happen.
How long is this presentation?
It's a little over an hour.
Oh. Not the kind of thing that Sneed could pull up and we could watch real quick.
Oh, gosh, no. No.
Okay.
No. But it's very informative. I mean, even to, if you're not in real estate, I think it's a good way to break down what's going on and explain the interest rates because it's a very complex thing. That's why I'm not trying to do it. I would totally butcher it. But I know you can pull it up on MGIC's webinar page, education page, and it's a great presentation. Probably I'm going to watch it again just to get a refresher. But yeah, I highly recommend it.
Okay.
He breaks it down pretty easy for a simple folk like me to understand.
What are you seeing right now with your buyers in the market? Are you seeing the same thing that I'm seeing as as far as how competitive it is, or no?
Not so much. No, knock on wood. I have had, let's just say, out of 8 active pre-quals people shopping, I've only had 1 lose out in a multi-offer, but that's because it went into a auction.
Escalation clause.
No.
Auction.
It was a true auction. It was a property in Richmond, foreclosure. They wanted to rehab it. So, Aside from that, I'm seeing, people are, not really fighting the multi-offer war.
I thought for a second, you were talking about a property that I showed the other day, because I showed a property that was a foreclosure that was auctioned, but not Richmond.
No. Okay, good.
Yeah, good.
All good.
Okay. Well, mortgages, cancer, ghosts.
Right? You're welcome.
What are we missing?
I love dogs. You want to talk about the dogs?
Sure.
So I have 2 doodles, like that has 2 doodles. And what's funny is it's like, okay, so our older doodles, Slash and Lily. Slash is the wired hair look. So is my Lily. Okay. And then our baby doodles are both the curly boys.
Correct.
And they're all about the same age.
I had never thought about that.
Now Slash is a little bit old. How old is Slash?
6.
Okay. Yeah. So Lily was my cancer dog. I got her when I was in chemo. You talk about your husband can't say no to a dog when you're going through chemo, right? It's like, get me a dog. So our puppies are about the same age, and we need to have a doodle party and get them together.
Did you feel like she could pick up when you weren't feeling well?
Yes. She was a baby, but I still feel that way. She still knows when I don't feel well.
I know when I had jaw surgery, I was camped out up here for weeks and weeks at a time.
They know.
Slash was just he was like I was a baby. He's so gentle with me when he isn't normally.
Right.
Izzy, on the other hand, to this day has no clue. He's not sensitive to anything. He's a wrecking ball.
That's my buck. He's just a big old goofball, Yeah. But no, Lily and Slash remind me a lot of each other. They're older, wiser, very intuitive. But yeah.
Well, Slash loves Lily.
Good times.
Well, Casilee, I think what we should start doing is sit down and check in every so often and just talk about the market and talk about what we're seeing rates do.
I think that's fabulous. Let's do it. And hopefully on May 15th, we're going to talk about lower rates again. Yeah,
because I think there's so much noise and so much speculation, so much uncertainty out there for people.
Yes, and we really need to break down some misconceptions. There's a whole lot out there. And I get it. The media plays into it. It's just very overwhelming, if you will. And it's not accurate. So, we need to do that. Inform the people. I'm about it.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Good talking to you.
Thanks for having me.